Zambia, and welcome to Season 2 of the Smart Voices Debate, sponsored by Zambia Revenue Authority. My name is Chanzi Sikaze, and I'll be your host for this season. Let's get right into it. The motion for this debate is, and I quote, "This House believes that the taxes paid equal a country's development." And I repeat, this House believes that the taxes paid equal a country's development. Proposing to this motion is Matero Girls, and opposing is Mount Makulu. I will now read the rules of the debate. No religious references, quotations, or concepts will be allowed. Physical evidence is allowed, which includes a demonstration of evidence and shall be handed over to the adjudicator, handwritten, printed, or published materials. The following items are prohibited in the preparation room: mobile phones, particularly smartphones, cameras, tablets, PCs, MP3 players, and anything that can store data electronically and or connect to the internet. All phones must be on silent. The sequence of the debate shall be as follows. The first speakers on each team present their arguments for 4 minutes, no interjections. The second and third speakers will speak for 3 minutes. Interjections will be allowed. The speaker summarizing will be allowed 4 minutes, no interjections. Interjections are allowed and shall be done as follows. Interjections will be allowed after the first 1 minute of a speaker taking the floor. Each interjection will be done within a minute. A speaker can only be interjected twice. The moderator will enforce the rules, allowing or rejecting interjections or calls for support. The timekeeper will pause the speaker's time when there's an interjection. A team can propose to support a speaker after interjection. Let's get into this quarterfinal. I will now call upon the first speaker from the proposing side.
A nation can dream big only if it has the means to act. Taxes are the fuel for that progress, and the more a country collects, the further it can get to building development. Proposing to the motion at hand, my name is Mercy Masinga, coming from the Matera Girls Secondary School, here saying yes in big bold letters to the motion that states, and I quote, "This House believes that taxes paid equal a country's development." End of quotation. As a bona fide speaker that I am, it would seem rather rude or unwise of me to proceed without acknowledging the presence of the highest dignitaries in this fine August House. But due to lack of time, I simply say, may all protocols be placed under definite reserve. As the first speaker coming from the mighty proposing delegation, it is my solemn duty to define the key terms in this motion being taxes. These are compulsory contributions levied by the government on individuals, businesses, and other entities to generate revenue for public use. Paid, in this case, refers to taxes that are actually collected and added to the government's revenue, not just imposed. A country, this is a nation with its own government and a well-defined territory. Development, this is the infrastructure, social, and economic progress of a country. Equal, in this case, implies a strong correlation or direct link between the taxes collected and the level of development achieved. To prove that I'm a speaker who speaks from within and not without the boundaries of debate, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Allow me to proceed to my points. Point number 1 being, government development depends on tax revenue. Members of the House, taxes form the backbone of the government's income, allowing it to plan and execute development programs. To prove that I'm a speaker who speaks from within and not without the boundaries of debate, allow me to quote from www.google.com. It states, and I quote, "Economic studies and reports consistently shows that the government development fundamentally depends on stable and sufficient tax revenue to fund essential public services, infrastructure, and social programs, thereby fostering economic growth and stability." End of quotation. Further analysis, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Without sufficient tax revenue, the government must either postpone development programs or borrow heavily, which can slow progress. Allow me to proceed to my second point being higher taxes lead to better social services. Members of this House, social services such as education, social protection, sanitation, and school facilities depend or are largely funded by tax money. To prove that I'm a speaker who speaks from within and not without the boundaries of debate, I've got evidence. Here with me is evidence quoted from www.google.com. It states, and I quote, "Government analysis and official reports consistently state that taxes are the primary source of revenue for funding essential public services and social programs." End of quotation. Further analysis, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. A strong tax base enables the government to provide better social services, improving the overall standard of living and driving this country to development. Allow me to proceed to my third point, which is revenue reduces dependency on foreign aid. Members of the House, a country that can collect tax and finance its own development, members of the House, if a country can collect tax and finance its own development, it will reduce its reliance on foreign aid, such as loans, donors, and other external grants. To prove that I'm a speaker who speaks from within and not without the boundaries of debate, I've got evidence. Here with me is evidence quoted from www.google.com. It states, and I quote, "A country's own revenue collection reduces its dependency on foreign aid, as seen in the declining aid dependence in low-income countries since 2002. End of quotation. Further analysis, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Members of the House, if a country can reduce its reliance on foreign aid, it can reduce the level of debts it has, avoid economic and political conditions attached to foreign aid. 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allocated.
In short, what me and my fellow proposers are trying to say is that taxes provide the main resources a country needs to grow. And the more taxes collected, the greater a country has to develop and better the life of its people. With these few but convincing points, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for truly living up to your title as the icebreaker and breaking us into these quarterfinals. I will now call upon the first speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. Time is not my best comrade. Allow me to acknowledge the order of presidency to be highly observed. Bouncing back to the motion that stipulates and articulates, this House believes that taxes paid equal a country's development. End of quotation. Being the icebreaker from the opposing delegation, allow me to define the key terms that have been used according to the Oxford Mini Dictionary. Tax, money that must be paid to the state. Equal, evenly balanced. Development, become or make larger or more advanced. To show that I'm a speaker that speaks from within and not from without, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Therefore, the simplified motion states, and I quote, "This House believes that the money that must be paid to the state is evenly balanced to the country's advancement." End of quotation. For my name is Trisha Violet, and I stand strongly to oppose to the motion with the following points. Number one, taxes do not automatically translate into development. It depends on the governance. Members of this House, let's talk about mismanagement of public funds. Allow me to call from Times of Zambia, dated 25th April 2024. Just last year, members of this House, not long ago. Begin of quote. PF wasted $200 million US. End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. This shows that there was mismanagement of funds. It was revealed that the project was still incomplete in 2022. And among the solar milling plants that were brought in, 555 were non-functional. How does this adapt to equal a country's development? Even if citizens pay high taxes, poor governance, corruption, or mismanagement can prevent tax revenue from becoming developed. Moving on to my second point, complex relationship between taxes and development. Taxes play a significant role in a country's development, but the relationship between taxes and development is complex. Members of this House, we have different types of tax structures. For example, we have income tax, we have value-added tax, we have corporate tax, just to mention a few. These taxes have different levels of efficiency and impact on economic growth, which cannot be achieved in one night, hence slow down development. Members of this House, let's talk about the Great East Road. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. Members of this House, how many people have died? How many accidents have we had taking place on the Great East Road? Why are the road taxes that are being collected just for the infrastructure of the roads? Members of this House, let's talk about the white elephant. What do I mean by white elephant? I simply mean abandoned buildings. Let's talk about the UNZA abandoned hostels. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. These hostels were abandoned 10 years ago, members of this House, and this is 2025. How does UNZA hostels equal a country's development? Moving on to my last point, natural resources contribute more to gross domestic products than tax revenue in Zambia. Allow me to quote from ZRA 2015 annual report by the chairman, Mr. Muila. Begin of quote. Major economic developments affecting revenue performance. Revenue collection in the year under review continued to be affected by both domestic and external factors. On the domestic front, Zambia's real gross domestic products, GDP, grew by 3.2% in 2015. The Good Samaritan do as well. Zambia's development from mining is tied more to natural resources and markets than tax revenue, meaning it is influenced by global copper prices, not tax revenue. When copper prices fall, Zambia's economy contracts. Even if tax collection remains steady, mining royalties, not income taxes, form a large chunk of government revenue. Members of this House, allow me to help you understand the motion once more using this illustration that I came up with. Members of this House, we can see we have tax paid, we have the key, we have the R that is representing automatic translation, we have the D that is representing development, and the dot representing facets of life. Examples are political, social, and many more. Members of this House, when tax is paid, there's an automatic translation leading to development. And in development, we expect to see good improvement of the existing, good improvement of infrastructure, good living standards, good industries, good salaries, which we are not seeing. As the opposing delegation, we strongly believe that the tax paid is not even in balance to the country's advancement. 30 seconds to sum.
30 seconds allocated.
Members of this House, we can see that we have tax paid. Tax paid goes through a complex stage as seen in the key. We also have factors that complicate eco-tax. We have poor governance, corruption, mismanagement of funds. May the Good Samaritan do as well. In conclusion, it is said one cannot fatten a cow in one day. But unfortunately, the proposing delegation are here trying to fatten the development of Zambia through impossible eco-tax. With this, I submit.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for breaking down the motion for us. I will now call upon the second speaker from the proposing side.
Bona fide, dignified affiliates of this session. Whereas effective taxation is the primary engine for national resilience and progress, providing the necessary funds for essential public service, infrastructure, and social programs. But before I go any further, allow me to give my gratitude and attitude to the highest dignitaries of this House. But due to lack of time, I simply say may all protocol be highly, highly observed. With the motion states, as I quote, taxes paid equal a country's development. End of quotation. Coming from the mighty proposing delegation, I say yes, 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 in big, bold, capitalized letters with my following point, which is main source of national budget funding. Members of the House, what I mean is that taxes are a primary source of funding the national budget, with domestic revenue to fund significant portions of the annual budget. Members of the House, allow me to quote from www.google.com, which states, as I quote, the Zambian Revenue Authority contribution to the national budget has steadily increased from 55% in 2020 to a projected 71.7% in 2025 and is expected to reach 73.1% in 2026. Members of the House, this shift towards domestic resource mobilization reduces dependency on foreign aid. End of quotation. To show you that I'm not just a speaker who speaks from without, but from within the boundaries of this debate, may the Good Samaritan please do as wise. My second point, which is funding.
Point of interjection allowed.
Please, members of this House, this question goes to the opposing delegation, the proposing delegation. Members of this House, the precurrent speaker just mentioned that tax paid contributes to a great majority of sponsoring the Zambia national budget. But this tax that is paid cannot equal to our country's development, having that there's some mismanagement of funds. Yes, we are not denying the fact that that tax is being paid, but the funds are not being managed well. As a result, you cannot see development because the money or tax revenue is not actually being used the way it is supposed to be used. May the precurrent speaker take that into consideration.
Mr. Speaker, indeed you are a good speaker, but if you allowed me to finish. Thank you. Funding social services. I hope this point answers your question. Members of the House, tax revenue is directed towards funding.
Point of interjection
social
denied. May the current speaker finish her point.
Thank you. Tax revenue is directed towards financing key social services and human development initiatives, including education, health, and infrastructure. Members of the House, allow me to elaborate. Members of this House, under education, tax help in funding for teacher recruitment, free education policies, and completion of school. And under health, members of the House, taxes fund in the recruiting of health personnel, constructing health facilities, and procuring medical supplies. Allow me to quote from www.google.com that states, as I quote, the 2024 budget allocated funds for the recruitment of 4,200 new teachers and the completion of abandoned school. And under the health sector, an additional 4,000 healthcare professionals were hired in 2024 and received 26.2 billion kwacha in the 2026 budget. This funding covers the recruitment of health personnel, the purchase of medicines, and the construction of facilities like cancer health treatment. End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. And members of the House, under infrastructure, taxes help in the funding of projects like roads, bridges, schools, and health
Point of
facilities.
interjection denied. The current speaker is in her last 30 seconds.
Thank you. Members of the House, allow me to show you allow me to quote from www.google.com that states, as I quote, the 2024 budget included funds. 30 seconds?
30 seconds allowed.
Thank you. The 2024 budget included funds for road projects such as Katete, and the 2026 budget, for example, prioritized investments in agriculture, road infrastructure, and mining, like the Lusaka Dollar Carriageway. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise. And members of this House, allow me to quote from www.meta.com that states, as I quote, schools funded through government budget. We have Lusaka Secondary School, Munali Secondary School, Kawata Secondary School, and Mount Makulu Secondary School. Members of the House. Members of the House, they say don't bite the hand that feeds you, members of the House. With these few and definitely convincing points, I raise my case. May the Good Samaritan please do as wise.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for those quotations. I will now call upon the second speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. Before I go any further, allow me to say all diplomatic etiquette be highly and sincerely observed. Standing before you, opposing to this motion that states, and I quote, taxes paid, this House believes that taxes paid equal a country's development. End of quotation is Kasochi Gladys. I will strongly oppose to this motion with the following points. Number one, Zambia's tax base is too small to drive full development. Members of this House, take a country like Zambia, for example. Zambia is still a developing country that has faced challenges of unemployment, and an informal sector do not pay taxes. And this shows that taxes not paid simply do not equate to a country's development. Members of this House, only a small population contributes to pay as you earn. This is as a result of people working informally in markets, others on small farms, and others doing casual labor. Members of this House, allow me to quote from Zambia Times, which states, and I quote, ZRA in April 2024 missed revenue collection. May the Good Samaritan, end of quotation, may the Good Samaritan do as wise.
Point of interjection.
Point of interjection allowed.
Madam Speaker, indeed you are a great speaker. As much as we know that much of Zambia's
Microphone.
population, as much as we know that most of Zambia's population lies in poverty and the others are not able to contribute, you're still able to contribute with VAT in Choppies. They're still contributing to tax. So what are you speaking?
Point of defense.
Point of defense allocated to the panel.
Members of the House, how much will actually VAT contribute to our country's development? Having that from a jig is costing 1 kwacha, VAT will only cost, let's say, maybe 10 ngwe. This will not equally equate to our country's development, as the value added tax added is too small in order to equate to our country's development.
Point of rebuttal.
Point of addition.
Point of addition allowed.
Members of this House, my point clearly states that Zambia's tax base is small. Now, if we have informal sectors that are not paying tax, if we have the poor that are not paying tax, how does this make the tax base big in order to support the full amount of development the country needs? So I'm urging this House to believe when I say that taxes paid do not equal to a country's development.
May the current speaker continue speaking.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson. Furthermore, there is a narrow tax base on the mining sector. Members of this House, mining sectors contribute a large amount of money compared to other sectors. Members of this House, allow me to quote from Evaluating the Relationships Between Taxation and Economic Development, which states, and I quote, ZRA in 2021 reported that the mining sector continued to be a significant contributor to tax collection. End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. So, members of this House, instead of over-reliance on this sector, why not diversify further or diversify enough by investing in other potential holding industries, such as the agriculture industry and the tourism industry? Allow me to quote members of this House from the 2018 national budget, which states, and I quote, "The mining sector continues to contribute significantly to Zambian economy and that the agriculture sector is critical for achieving diversification." End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. My second point, members of this House, is there is an inefficient tax administration. This leads to an unequal balance in the development of the country. Allow me to quote members of this House from a 2018 national budget, which states, and I quote, "Zambia has struggled to broaden its tax base, partially because of the use of exemptions, inefficient tax administration, and large informal sectors." End of quotation. This clearly shows you, members of this House, that the inefficient tax administration does not equate to a country's development, members of this House. So if tax is collected poorly or is continued to be collected through inefficient tax systems or incentives, members of this House, do you think that those inefficient tax administrations contribute to a country's development?
Point of interjection denied.
My third point, members of this House, 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allocated.
I strongly oppose to this motion with the following points. Number one, Zambia's tax base is too small to drive full economic development. Second point is there's inefficient tax administration. And my third point, members of this House, is that Zambia's development is driven by other external factors beyond tax. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. With these few but convincing points of mine, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for that articulation. I will now call upon the third speaker from the proposing side.
My tax, your tax, our destiny. Taxation erode to Zambia's development. And yet again, I'm here, Kazi Mpundula, to propose the motion which states, as I quote, "The House believes that taxes paid equal a country's development." End of quotation. But before I go any further, it might seem rude or rather indisciplined of me to proceed without acknowledging the praises to the high seniorities that are praising today in this chamber. But due to the rapid ticking of time, may I simply say, may our protocol be highly, highly observed. Bouncing back to the motion under microscopic analysis, allow me to proceed with my points. Point number one, community engagement. Members of this House, taxes play a crucial role in community engagements. When citizens contribute to government revenue, they participate in the nation's development through taxation, which provides essential services and resources. To prove that I'm a speaker of articulate facts, allow me to submit these pieces of evidence to the judges that I quoted from www.meta.ai. For further clarity to the judges, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Allow me to proceed.
Point of order allowed.
Members of this House, we all know that AI is artificial intelligence generated by man that can also be forged. So may the Good Samaritan, may the Speaker clarify that point.
Oh. Sorry, members of this House, for that mistake that I made. I was meant to say www.google. Allow me to proceed to my second point, which is healthcare services. Members of the House, tax revenue is used to fund facilities in Zambia. Healthcare, which improves access to healthcare services in Zambia, which promotes health equity and community stability. Members of the House, according to research, in 2024, the Zambian government allocated 11% of its total national budget.
Point of interjection allowed.
This question goes to the proposing delegation. I heard the precurring speaker say paying taxes contributes to community engagement. Members of this House, paying taxes does not contribute to community engagement because our communities don't even know why they're paying taxes, and ZRA rarely carries out community education so that these people can know why they're paying taxes. May the judges and the moderator take that into consideration.
Point of rebuttal.
Point of rebuttal allowed.
Members of the South, at our school, the ZRA regularly comes and gives us education on why we pay taxes. For I know why we pay taxes is because to develop our nation. Allow me to proceed. As I was saying, The government allocated 11% of its total national budget to the healthcare, and the majority, 92% of the healthcare budget, funded by domestic resources, which are taxes. To prove that I'm a speaker or articulate facts, allow me to submit these pieces of evidence that I quoted from www.google.com. For further clarity to the judges, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. Allow me to proceed to my last but not the least point, which is education sector. Members of the South, taxes are used for the development and rehabilitation of schools. Members of the South, for example, we've got the Constituency Development Fund and the Free Education. They are initiatives that are boosting Zambia's education sector by providing funding.
Point of order. Denied. The speaker is in her last 30 seconds of speaking.
By providing funding for students in schools, taxes drive Zambia's education sector, empowering generations and community. To prove that I'm a speaker or articulate facts, allow me to submit these pieces of evidence that I call it from www.google.com. For further clarity to the judges, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. In conclusion, members of this House, to the opposing delegation, where do you think Zambia would be without taxes? Surely, opposing to this motion is like baking a cake without ingredients. It is doomed from the start. Allow me to rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for educating us on this matter. I will now call upon the third speaker from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. They say excellence is not an act, but a habit. The things you do most are the things you do best. Before I go any further, allow me to pass my humble greetings to the following people. To the chairperson, I salute. To the judges, I bow. In simplicity, I say all protocol be highly observed. Going back to the motion which stipulates as I articulate, this House believes that taxes paid equals the country's development. End of articulation. Members of this House, allow me to quote from ZRA's annual report 2022, which talks about Zambia Revenue Authority is an autonomous body which came into being on the 1st of April 1994 with a mandate to collect and account for all government revenue. End of quote. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. This means that taxes have been collected since the 1st of April 1994 until today, 22nd of November. Now, members of this House, let me pose the question to you. Why is Zambia still called a developing country? This is why I, Grace Mwewa, stand here to oppose to this motion with the following points. Development also depends on non-financial factors, such as stable policies and strong institutions. Members of this House, development doesn't only need revenue, but other factors. Members of this House, a developing country like Zambia collects tax, but is still facing poverty because of weak institutions and bad policies. Allow me to quote from staff report for the 2017 Article 4 consultation. This requires measures and policies that will permanently boost domestic revenue. May the Good Samaritan do as wise.
Point of interjection.
Point of interjection allowed.
Madam Speaker, indeed you're quite a good speaker, but members of this House, imagine we subtract taxes from Zambia. Don't you think Zambia would be way underdeveloped than it is today? So may the current speaker please clarify.
Point of defense.
Point of defense allocated.
Members of the House, I would like you to please note once again that even though taxes have been removed, or even though the collection of taxes has been stopped, Zambia will not necessarily be affected if actually the tax being paid is not being managed well. That means that even if the tax has been collected, if it does not, it will not be managed well. That means its effect will not actually even be seen or even.
Point of rebuttal.
Point of rebuttal allowed.
Mr. Speaker, sir. So you are telling me that you, who ZRA, members of this auditorium, tax funding is funding your school. You're telling me if that tax funding did not exist, would you be in school? Would
Point
Zambia
of order.
be where it is, members of this fine August House?
Point of order.
Point of order allowed.
Members of this House, is it orderly for my fellow speaker to provide such direct confrontation? It is not, members of this House.
Evidence has been given
further,
to the judges.
without any evidence. So I will continue to
Evidence
clarify
has been passed
that
on to the judges.
tax collected, even though tax has been collected, if it will not be managed well, its effect will not be seen. So even if it has been eradicated, its effect will not be seen either way.
Point of rebuttal.
Any further interjections are denied. May the current speaker continue speaking.
Allow me to proceed, members of this House. Members of this House, bad policies can completely cut down the potential for development. Members of this House, even if tax are collected, it will make it useless because we have bad policies. Members of this House, upon saying that, allow me to dive into the second point, which talks about tax revenue is lost through debt servicing. Being a developing country, Zambia borrows money to sustain the nation. Now we find that when the taxes has been collected, a big share goes to servicing debts rather than developing the nation. Members of this House, allow me to quote about on Daily Nation Zambia. About 14.4 billion kwacha was released by the Ministry of Finance and National Planning to finance public service delivery. And then government spent about 7.3 billion kwacha to service its debt obligation. Members of this House, end of quote. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. Members of this House, this shows that a big percentage doesn't go to financing projects that would develop the nation, but it goes in servicing debt. Members of this House, what matters is how revenue is used. And if it is mismanaged and it is not used, it's used in servicing debt, how are we as a country going to develop? Members of this House. Members of this House, allow me to conclude by saying taxes paid cannot simply equal a country's development, because of development also depends on non-financial factors, and tax revenue is lost through debt servicing. With these few but convincing points of mine, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Speaker, for those quotations and articulations. I will now call upon the summarizer from the proposing side.
As Zambia's smart voices, it is our responsibility to make the right choices. House of Intellectuals, surely opposing to this motion, has diluted this chamber with ignorance. But never fear, for I am here to eradicate all form of propaganda that has been spread by the opposition. But before we begin, it would be rather rude of me to start without acknowledging the presence of the highest seniorities in this august house. But due to time, may I simply say, may all protocols be put under definite reserve. House of Intellectuals, we as the affluent Materago Secondary School totally propose the motion that states, as I quote, "This house believes that taxes paid equal a country's development." End of quotation. Members of the house, get us clearly. Me and my delegation are trying to say, members of this auditorium, that without taxes, members of this auditorium, there is no development for this country. Members of the house, taxation is the bloodline for this country's development. Allow me to elaborate with the following points that were raised by my first speaker. Firstly, being members of this auditorium, government depends, members of this auditorium, on taxes. House of Intellectuals, imagine if we were not paying taxes. Members of this auditorium, how would even the poor in Zambia be able to access medical services? Because of the taxes we're able to pay, members of this auditorium, we have free education. CDF, members of this auditorium, that is even helping the vulnerable in our society. May the Good Samaritan please pass on this evidence to the judges for further clarity. Aside from that, members of this auditorium, it was also alluded by my second speaker, members of the house, that revenue reduces dependency on foreign aid. Members of the house, when a country, members of the house, has taxation, they are able, members of this auditorium, to be self-reliant. To show that I'm a speaker who speaks from within and not without the borders of the house, with me is evidence quoted from www.google.com that states, as I quote, "Evidence shows, members of this auditorium, that increased domestic revenue has significantly reduced dependency on foreign aid through mechanisms like improved tax collection and economic growth." End of quotation. May the Good Samaritan pass this evidence to the judges for further analysis. House of Intellectuals, aside from this, members of this auditorium, funding social services. Yes, members of this auditorium, we do not argue that, yes, our taxation system is prone to corruption. Even amidst all those factors, it is still able, members of this auditorium, to provide social services like education. Let us give the members of this auditorium the benefit of the doubt. Without taxation, this country would be nowhere, members of this auditorium, with or without members of this auditorium as being developed. Our taxation system has, members of this auditorium, added on to us getting somewhere. May the Good Samaritan pass on this evidence to the judges for further clarity. Members of the house, just as alluded by my third speaker, community engagement. Members of the house, taxation helps even the poor, the middle income, and the rich to contribute, members of this auditorium, to their social services. When we go to schools, members of this auditorium, either if it's a child of the marketeer, a child of of a poor man, a child, members of this auditorium, of a rich man. When you go to a school, members of this auditorium, the services are the same. Members of the House, doesn't it give you a bit of leverage, feeling nice that I'm going to a school, knowing that my parents are paying taxes, and surely, members of this auditorium, when you get that education, won't the country develop? It will, members of this auditorium. May the Good Samaritan please pass on this evidence to the judges for further analysis. Aside from this, members of the House, economic growth. Members of this auditorium, we do not contend the fact that, yes, our taxation system has loopholes, but economic growth. Let us not neglect the economic growth that it has contributed. Members of the House, allow me to demonstrate. House of Intellectuals, these are all the factors that were spoken by my opposition. Factors like the mining sector, agricultural sector. Members of this auditorium, this is the mining sector, agriculture sector. All of them adding on. But members of the House, are you telling me if we had this without the water, would this country still grow? Members of this auditorium, 30 seconds to sum up.
30 seconds allowed.
Thank you. Members of the House, the taxation system is the water. It is the bloodline. Members of the House, mining, agriculture are affected by climate and different things. But with taxation, members of this auditorium, it helps the Zambia as a country to continue to run smoothly, even the health of the miners. Imagine if we never paid taxes for mining. Members of this auditorium, would we even be going to schools or even clinics? Definitely not. May the Good Samaritan pass this evidence to the judges due to jealousy of time. Members of the House, allow me to end with these following points. I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Madam Summarizer, for that detailed summary. I'll now call upon the last speaker of this debate, sadly, the summarizer from the opposing side.
Thank you, Madam Chairperson, for your call. Before I go any further, allow me to say all diplomatic etiquette be highly observed. Standing here unequivocally is Moses Banda as the summarizer from the opposing delegation, here to highlight the points that have been outlined by my fellow debaters, who have, as I, strongly opposed to the motion which states as I articulate. This House believes that tax paid equal a country's development. End of articulation. Members of the House, I would like our stance as the opposition to be known. Our stance is taxes alone don't equal a country's development. How the money is managed determines development. I repeat, taxes alone don't equal a country's development. To further help you understand our stance as the opposing delegation, please take a look at this illustration. Members of the House, this here is the tax paid, and this here is the amount of development. And these here are the weighing factors such as mismanagement of funds and debt servicing. Members of the House, these weighing factors have to be put into consideration before the tax paid can actually equal to our country's development. To start with, thank you, may the Good Samaritan do as wise. To start with, members of the House, do you believe that just because textbooks have been bought for a pew-pew, it will automatically translate into good grades? No. Therefore, with the same reasoning, taxes paid do not automatically translate into development. Members of the House, development is never automatic. It is always backed by action. Moving on to my next point. Tax revenue is often lost through debt servicing. Members of the House, take this as an example. I am your neighbor who owes you a large sum of money which has to be serviced monthly. As soon as my salary comes in, a large portion of it will go towards servicing my debt to you, leaving me with only a little that is not even enough to last me through the month, leaving me liable to borrow once again. Members of the House, are you telling me that my salary will equal to my progression or development? No. No. Therefore, with the same reasoning, tax paid cannot equal to a country's development if most of it is actually being lost towards debt servicing. Members of the House, I have evidence. Allow me to quote from the 2024 National Budget Analysis. Beginning of quote, out of the total general public services allocation of 58.9 billion kwacha, 32.9 billion is for domestic debt servicing. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. Moving on to my next point, mismanagement of funds. And as I come to my next point, allow me to refute and to rebuttal the claims of the proposing delegation. Tax indeed is paid, but it does not equal to our country's development because of mismanagement of funds. Members of the House, we are not denying the fact that tax is being paid, but what we are saying is that it does not equal to our country's development because funds and tax revenue is actually being mismanaged. Members of the House, even though tax collection has been eradicated, if its effect were not seen initially, it will not make any difference, as the funds that are being paid are actually being mismanaged. Allow me to quote members of this House from a publication by Zambia Today titled PSC Summons Zambia Correctional Service. Members of the House, beginning of quote, 109 chiefs' palaces were to be built in 8 districts, and a total sum of 446,666,772 kwacha was allocated towards the project. But members of this House, I am sad to inform you that only one of these chiefs' palaces has been completed. 66 are works in progress and 13 are yet to even commence. Members of the House, this shows that there is high mismanagement of funds. As a result, there cannot be development, and the tax paid is not equal to our country's development. May the Good Samaritan do as wise. Coming to my next point, Zambia's tax base is too small to drive food development. Members of this House, allow me to quote from a research done by Chamuka Shalobala under the title Now Tax Base. ZRA, Zambia Revenue Authority, has expressed concern over the persistently low tax base in the country. Speaking during the 2025 tax sensitization workshop for non-state actors in Lusaka, ZRA Commissioner General Dingani Banda says it is disheartening that only 983 taxpayers, 30 seconds to sum up, please.
30 seconds allowed.
Being the summarizer, allow me to highlight the points that have been outlined by my fellow debaters one by one. To start with, taxes do not automatically translate into development. Action does. Members of the House, second point, Zambia's tax base is too small to drive food development. Thirdly, Zambia's development is also driven by external factors beyond taxes. Fourthly, natural resources contribute to development, not just taxes. Fifthly, tax revenue is often lost through debt servicing. And lastly, mismanagement of funds. Members of the House, having sealed this argument with concrete evidence, I rest my case.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Sadly, we have come to the end of this glorious debate. But stay tuned as the judges tally the results. Who do you think has won? Mount Makulu or Matero Girls?
Healthcare is a fundamental right for every citizen. In Zambia, the health sector is being strengthened thanks to the strategic use of tax revenues. Taxes collected from individuals and businesses are vital in funding healthcare services. These funds are used to build hospitals, purchase medical equipment, and ensure the availability of essential medicines, providing quality health care for all. Thanks to the ZRA's efforts, new hospitals and health centers are being constructed across Zambia. These new facilities bring quality health care closer to communities, ensuring that more people can receive the treatment they need. Tax revenues also ensure that hospitals are equipped with modern medical equipment. From diagnostic machines to surgical tools, these resources are essential for providing comprehensive care. A portion of the tax funds is dedicated to training and paying our hard-working healthcare professionals. Investing in their education and skills means better healthcare for patients. By supporting healthcare through tax revenues, we are building a healthier Zambia. Zambia Revenue Authority, your tax, my tax, our destiny.
The results are in. The judges have decided. Mount Makulu. Mount Makulu. The opposers have scored. Nine hundred and 68. A big hand for Mount Makulu. Matero Girls, the proposers. The 4 girls from Material Girls have scored a total of 'Now is the time to know who qualified for the next stage of the competition. Is it Material Girls or Mount Makulu? Put your hands together for Material Girls once again. The scoreboard reveals that Material Girls gathered 786 points. Therefore, which means that Mount Makulu qualifies to the semi-finals. See you next week for another debate. We'll see you there.